What's going on, my intergalactic pals? And kind of want to talk about some of the rules for tournament play that I've been kind of reading up on and getting people's opinions. And they're interesting in a sense. Some are based on best of 3 matches, best of 1, and like sleeves and playmats, which are all very interesting to me. And um, I'm gonna just read some of it while I have it up on the screen, and I'll try to highlight the ones that I'm kind of going over. I don't know how to highlight yet in Photoshop, but I'll figure it out. That way we're all on the same page. But yeah, so let's get into it. So to go over the single game match, it's obviously best of 1. It says during single game match, or 4.2.1 round time, during a single game match play, players will have 25 minutes each round to complete their match. So you get 25 minutes to play. So they figured 25 minutes roughly for one game. 4.2.2 match resolution. During a single game match play, the first person to win a game by destroying their opponent's base is the winner of the match. If time is called before either player has resolved the game to completion, players continue play until the end of the next action phase. If the game is in the regroup phase when time is called, then the upcoming action phase will be the last phase played. If neither player has managed to win by the end of that last action phase, neither player has won the game, and both players receive a match loss, or loss for the match. As a reminder, a player can concede at any time before the end of the game. So, based on that wording, they're dictating, saying that any game that you play, especially in a single best of 1, is that shouldn't take you no more than 25 minutes. So you're either playing a very fast deck, or you're playing a mid-range deck, or a late game deck. Even the deck I play, which is a Palpatine red deck, you need at least 8 resources before you can play Palpatine. That's 6 turns if I don't get a laser tech or a resupply to speed up that process. So that's kind of where they're at. So even if you're playing they feel like even if you're playing a very controlled deck to stall out the game for as long as possible, it shouldn't take you no more than 25 minutes. That's true to an extent. I haven't really played games past 15 minutes. They go fairly fast, especially if I already know I'm going to lose. Why am I going to waste my opponent's time? I'd rather just scoop up and call it. But a lot of things that people don't like is that it's a double loss if no one wins. With that being said, it's to I'm just going to play devil's advocate here and try to play both sides, both the good and the bad to it. I don't know their reasoning behind it until I actually talk to somebody who is in rules management and what their thought process behind this was. It's to prevent people from intentionally trying to draw out the game. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! I used to judge Yu-Gi-Oh! And judge Magic. And with those formats, a lot of times, if I'm first place and my opponent's second place, or if I'm playing for top 3 first or whatever, you can intentionally draw between each other. Neither one of you get 0 points. I think it was like 1 point each, which means that you don't get a loss, which means you both tied, and depending on how the people you played previously determines your ranking. So as long as the people below you are still within the high enough bracket, they still push you into the top 3. It could have changed. I don't know the system anymore. This was years ago. I think that's their thought process. I'm assuming. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think it's kind of interesting to make a rule where there's no ties, and I would say game thematically it makes sense. You're playing a villain or a hero or whoever, and your goal is to destroy their base. You're not going to fight and limit on. First off, you're going to use your resources to the best of your ability, but you're essentially fighting as those characters, and neither side, if it's a stalemate, is going to be like, well, call it a day, good game. Like, no, the whole objective is to win. You want to win. So I think that's more of the gameplay mindset that they're going for, is to make it more realistic in the sense of Star Wars. I mean, you're not going to have Darth Vader not destroy the base of the enemy because he didn't have enough time to. I like, there's no ties in wars, I guess. I don't know. Again, that's what I'm assuming. And I'll even go into the best of 3 matches. Best of 3 match plays. Players will have up to 55 minutes to complete their matches. Let's see. That's a 3.1 or 4.31 round time. 4.32 match resolution. During the best of 3 match play, the first player to win 2 games by destroying their opponent's bases is the winner of the match. If time is called before either player has won 2 games, players continue playing until the end of the next action phase. If they're in the regroup phase, then that would be the last turn they play anyways. At this point, the player with the most games won is the winner of the match. If players are tied for the number of games won, then players receive a loss for the match. If time is called between games during the best of 3 matches and players are tied for the number of game wins, both receive a loss for the match. So they kind of just doubled up saying the same thing at this point. I think they're trying to reiterate that if I have 1 game won, my opponent has 0, I won the match when time is called. That's it. There's no double loss. But if I won 1 and my opponent won 1, and then time is called and neither one of us can decide who won, then we both get a game loss. Again, I think that's where they're going towards, is to give that, again, I just, going back to the single best of, again, that I think they're just trying to avoid people trying to make ties to have the best placement in the rounds. I know I watched a championship. I rolled for a championship game, and first the guy who was 2 people were undefeated, and the guy was like, "Well, even if I lose, I get second." I'm like, "No, you won't get second. That's not how that works." Or at least I'm assuming that's how the system's going to work. If I remember how Magic is, I go, if you lose, if whoever loses, one of you guys is probably going to get like 4th or 5th. And sure enough, the one who lost ended up getting 4th place. And he was upset. He's like, "Well, this doesn't make sense." I'm like, I mean, the game doesn't allow for ties. You either get 1 point, 2 points, or 0 points, and that's it. So even if you won 1 game and your opponent won 2 games, you got 1 point. But if you're 1-1, you get 1 point. You don't get anything else. And it's just to prevent people from just intentionally drawing out the game. I think that's what they're going for. And honestly, I think that's what it is. And they took, for the best of 3 matches, they took that same wording, pushed into best of 1, and went from there. Another thing that kind of caught my eye were about sleeves and alts for cards. Let's see, where can I find it? I'm trying to find it. 3.2.1 cards. The following sets are illegal for premium format events: Spark of the Rebellion, which is the only set at this time, with the next set coming out in July. Players are permitted to use cards that have been autographed by Fantasy Flight Games staff members or artists, so long as the autograph is on the front of the card. If the autograph covers up any amount of text on the card, the player should have an additional copy of the card on hand that is unmarked for their opponent to reference. No other alterations are allowed, regardless if the event is casual or competitive. Examples of illegal altercations include, but are not limited to, stickers applied to any part of the card, folds or creases, intentional or otherwise, custom variants with unofficial alternate art or graphic design, doodles or drawings. So pretty much what they're saying is any form of like proxies. Like, I really want a cool Palpatine card, but according to this, it's saying that I'm not allowed to have that. I think that's kind of weird, and I think that's kind of silly in a sense. I mean, is this a Fantasy Flight kind of rule for the company, or is this a Disney thing? Did Disney tell them, like, hey, we don't want people having proxies? I totally understand that for the main deck and things like that, but I think if I have the Palpatine leader actual card and I want to use a different art of Palpatine, I mean, as long as I have both, I don't see why that shouldn't be a problem, but apparently it is. But with that being said, they also have one for sleeves and mats. 3.2.2 sleeves. All sleeves are on the draw deck and sideboard must be identical in size, color, and art design, while also being opaque. All cards in the draw deck must be put into sleeves with identical orientation. And an identical orientation, meaning they all have to face the same way. A maximum of one card can be sleeved at a time. Well, I don't understand that, but okay. Sleeves with highly reflective backs or holographic fronts are not permitted. Sleeves with graphics on the front that hinder being able to see the card text are not permitted. Sleeves with artworks are permitted as long as they are officially licensed by the Star Wars Unlimited sleeves. Cards may be doubled and tripled sleeved as long as the extra sleeves are completely clear with no additional markings on them. So pretty much the sleeves, so if you get custom sleeves made, not permitted unless it's officially licensed by Star Wars, which I think is weird. But I mean, whatever. Nothing we can really do about that unless they change it somewhere down the line. But I know Dragon Shield company does custom sleeves where you make your own custom sleeves and things like that. As someone who has an artist friend, if I wanted him to make me some custom art for Star Wars and I wanted to put those on a sleeve, nope, that's not allowed because they're not officially licensed by Star Wars Unlimited. Again, I don't know why they make that ruling. I don't know if that's a Fantasy Flight thing. I don't know if that's a Disney thing, but that is going to hinder. I think that's a really silly rule. I say silly because I don't want to say dumb, but it is a dumb rule. I mean, as long as they're all the same, as long as there's no markings, as long as there are no lewd or inappropriate pictures, I honestly don't think that should be a problem. But who knows? Same thing goes for game mats. 3.2.3, players are permitted to use game mats during their matches. All game mats are required. So I like how they say players are permitted to use game mats during their matches. Cool. I'm allowed to use my play mats. All game mats are required to either be solid colors with no artwork on them or officially licensed ones. So they're saying, hey, you want to use a playmat, it's got to be one solid color. It can't be anything else, or it could be a Star Wars playmat that we make. Again, what if I find some really cool art that's Star Wars related? I want to get it custom made where I have my ground area, my space area, my resource area, my deck, and my let's call it my junkyard pile, graveyard, discard pile, whatever you want to call it, designated. You're telling me if I went to a competitive game like at Gen Con and I wanted to use that playmat with my custom sleeves, they're going to tell me no? I mean, that's kind of dumb. What if I don't these Star Wars playmats are very hard to come by. I saw a couple of them. I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. Or even the double-sided official one where it has all the zones. Those are hard to get. But yet, if I had just one of my Magic Gathering mats on me, they're going to tell me no because it's a Magic Gathering mat. Like, it's just dumb. We shouldn't restrict things to that kind of minute. I think there should be rules for certain things. They're like, I'm 100% for what I think Yu-Gi-Oh just ruled, where it's like you can't have inappropriate pictures of women that are women, kids. What, like, people have lowly stuff, which is weird. Like, I don't want that. I don't want. I mean, if you want a cool succubus picture, sure, whatever. But like, I mean, kids play these games. I play these games. Like, I don't like artwork doesn't offend me, but it may offend somebody else. And obviously, I'm not gonna have like something super inappropriate, like a the half naked Leia on my playmat. Like, I know we're never gonna see Princess Leia and her slave outfit on a playmat or some sleeves, because one, that's something kids will see, even though it's in the movie, and I think their parents probably showed their kids. If you're a fan of Star Wars, you've probably seen those movies and you probably know what I'm talking about. But it's just the idea that they're not gonna have that, and if they did, pff, cool. I'll buy the playmat. I'll buy the sleeves. But if that's not what they're going for, I can totally understand it. Like, if I find like a really cool piece of art, or again, going back to like maybe an artist buddy who draws me two Jedis fighting, or like a picture of the Clone Wars, whatever, and I get that printed on a mat, like, that's not gonna offend anybody. But I also know super inappropriate pictures that people do have that don't bother me, but it could bother the person next to me. It could be a family playing, and you're playing with a half naked dark magician girl only covered up by rose petals from A Beautiful Mind. Like, I wouldn't care, but the family might care, and I don't want a kid that's only 6 or 7 to be seeing that. That's kind of messed up. I wouldn't want my kids seeing that. So I think that's where we should draw the line. But to enforce where it has to be officially licensed, it's kind of dumb. But who knows? It could be a Disney ruling or whatever. I don't know. That's just my take on a lot of this stuff. Just going over some of it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you agree with any of this, you don't agree with any of this, what would you change? How would you change it? And yeah, be safe out there in the galactic world, and I'll see you around.